Hello everyone. Picture this. You are a Scrum Master or project manager or even a developer. Someone says to you, we are using Jira for our project management. This is where we keep our epics, tasks, stories, and bugs. And you are just starting out, never heard of these words before. You're asking yourself, what is this? You probably go to the Google, you Google out like what are the epics word, the stories word, the tasks, what are all of these buzzwords that are coming out? Well, in today's video, we're going to unveil that because when it comes to the Jira, it has those are something that is called the issue types. In Jira, default issue types are epics, stories, tasks, subtasks, and bugs. The question is, alright, I understand, but why we use them? So let me give you an example, right? So you're the developer, and you actually see something that says widget feature or new AI chatbot or UI UX redesign of the website. And you think to yourself, well, there's a lot of things that are going in there. So think about it. When it comes to the implementing, for example, the chatbot, there is like the code for it. There is like the training the chatbot based on the data sets, and a lot of those things that are going on in there. So since it seems like something that is huge, something that is big, like a big chunk of work, well, my friends, that is called an epic. Alright, so you can define epic as something that is on the top of the hierarchy when it comes to the issue types. Why? Because in epics, you're grouping all of the smaller chunks of work. What do I mean by this? The smaller chunks of work are then the following. You have stories, tasks, and subtasks. Okay, so you're thinking to yourself, all right, I seen the epic, and how the epic actually looks like, or how is it being made? Well, you click on create, and this is where it begins. Epic name. So it's gonna be UI UX redesign. There's also gonna be the summary. The description is gonna be a bit more, so you can say redesign of the whole website, and you can add more ideas to this. You can even select a component. I don't have a appropriate component for this. What is going to be the priority for this? It really depends. So, for example, if it's something when it comes to the new feature, usually the newer features are going to be the ones with the higher priorities. All right, this in here disregard because this was actually being used in the one of the videos. All right, so when you create an epic, now what actually happens in here? It says this column is getting full. Now the question is, where is the epic? Well, the epic is right here. And in here it says UX UI redesign. And this is the epic. Of course, you can change the color of the epic, and you can actually put everything that is in here. Now, so those are the epics. There is one thing. And usually when you go to the timeline, in the timeline, you're going to see the epics right here. So why is this? Because this is based on the hierarchy itself. It's going to show the epics first and everything that is beneath the epics as well. So as you can see, all right, so I'm just going to filter out this one. And this is the epic, and the whole epic is based on the timeline. And why is this? Because then everyone can actually see when is the next feature going to be rolled out. So for example, in here I have a, let's say, chatbot feature. I'm going to say they're saved. It's currently hidden because of the filter or the view settings. Oh, okay. All right. So what I want to do, I cleared the filter, and that was actually because, well, it was showing only this one right here. So now what happens is there's something that is called, okay, you can create a child issue. Now here comes the fun part. Below the epic in the hierarchy are stories, right? That is a shortened word, right? It's actually something that is called a user story. And actually the user story is the representation of one part of the functionality of a specific feature. For example, let us go to stories. Usually, what is being described in here? A user story consists of three parts. So, it consists of the following format. And this is always going to be like this. So it's going to start as a user, for example. This could be as a developer, as a manager, as a Jira admin, as a Scrum Master. Doesn't really matter. So it's actually who, as a who. As a user, I want to browse for products so I can decide if I'm going to buy any or not. All right, so what actually this represents? This actually represents, and this story actually exists in order, well, usually for the ones who are creating this ticket. So for the developers, they can understand the functionality that needs to be implemented. So let me clear this more so you can understand better. So if you're saying you're having a chatbot, right? And that's a whole feature, and that feature needs to consist of some functionalities, right? So that means like this. As a user, I want to be able to type a question so I can get a relevant answer from a chatbot. Now, the thing is, now the you can picture what this could be. This is going to be the functionality of a text field. In that text field, The user is going to type out the question, and from that question, the chatbot needs to generate the answer. So that is one part of the functionality. Just like here, as a user, want to browse for products so I can decide if I'm going to buy any or not. So another thing that usually the stories are existing, and I want to point out this, that this is from the product management perspective. And a lot of product managers, their job is also to write tickets. And they're writing tickets using the story type. Okay? So in here, then you have, in the summary, you have this. Then you have in the description, usually in the description by the product management, it goes something like acceptance criteria. Here, you're actually describing every possible thing. What needs to happen and how it needs to happen. And of course, when you finish with all of that, you're actually attaching a design to it. But then again, story needs to be there in order for the developer to understand what they need to be working on. And of course, bear in mind that this is all for the software development projects. You also have the projects that are for business, for the HR, for the finances. It really depends for which department is this. All right? But I want to say that that is a story, and that comes within the epic. So if you go back here to the timeline, and you go for the chatbot, you can see automatically that the default issue type in here is the story. And then you say, as a user, I need to type a question so that I can get a relevant answer from the chatbot. This is the first thing. As you can see, it's in the status of to do. Now, when you see this, you can actually go here. What can happen here? I can say, all right, this is going in progress, and as you can see right here, the status has changed. Okay? The status is changed right now. And there's something that you can actually see in here when I move it across the timeline. You can actually see that I'm getting something. Now, the question now is, in here it says 2 weeks. It's by the default, of course. 2 weeks. And what I can say that it will start, okay, it will start, for example, tomorrow. And this needs to be expected to be done until the 13th of December. So this is the expected to be done, and what this actually means, expected to be done, this whole epic to be completed. So as you can see in here, this is a story. Now, one thing in here. All right, so I want to, first of all, I wanna get rid of this one, because this was actually made by the automation, and I want to have that in there. There you go. We have a user story. Okay, this is pretty good. But we said, and the developers like, okay, We understand this. And usually they're the ones who are actually making the next issue type, which is called tasks. Nothing more but a bunch of chunks of work that needs to be done in order for a story to be completed and in order for that acceptance criteria to be validated. Now, and when you hand them the work, when you hand the work to developers, what they're actually doing in here, well, they're going for tasks. And for the developers, it's like, oh, as a user, I need to do this. Then the question is, what tasks I need to complete before this in order to achieve and complete this acceptance criteria from this story that I have. So it's like, oh, this functionality needs to be done. Well, what before that needs to be done? Well, text field needs to be created. Then for example, the input from the user needs to be detected. Then the chatbot data set needs to be inserted, and the chatbot starts to get trained based on the questions that the user is asking, and etc. So, and that is only the thing when it comes to that text field. When it comes to the pop-ups and everything, so it would be like, as a user, I want to be able to see my question within the chat dialog from the chatbot, so I can see what I wrote, and if I don't like the answer, I can change it later. For example, that would be only the functionality or the pop-ups, for example. So that is a different thing. Okay, so those are tasks. So in here it would be like, okay, the subtask is going to be this. Now the question is, in here now it says reminder 1. Never mind. So what it needs to be done? It's going to be code the text field. For example, it's going to be that. And as you can see, when all of the subtasks are done and when they're completed, the story is completed. And depending on how much of the stories are within a single epic, and when the tasks are completed within the stories, it's gonna depend what kind of actual progress is being made. And last but not least, there is another issue type by default that is also there. That is used by the testers. Those are called bugs. All right. So bugs, they're a different thing. They're not in this hierarchy right here because they're separate. And you can say that for every functionality, of course, there are going to be some bugs. And there are going to be testers, QAs out there who are going to be writing the test cases. And if the test cases, and either the test has passed or the test has failed. And there are usually running bugs because something unexpected is actually happening within the functionality itself. Now that is a different case from this one. But then again, they're actually different. So I hope you you guys get now the idea of the epics, stories, tasks, subtasks, and last but not least, bugs.